I don't think if a lot of them have spawned, it hasn't been very long. So this is one of those days that I didn't have to set an alarm. The lake's flooded. You know, these outside bushes and trees are in 10, 11 foot of water. A lot of guys, when that happens, really don't like to go fishing. One of my favorite times to fish. I think one reason is because it kind of changes the lake. You know, you're used to fishing the lake, and then all of a sudden it comes up 10, 15 foot, and then a lot of things change. But what we're going to do today, we just put the boat in. We're just going to go fishing. You know, I got a couple spinnerbaits laid out, a flipping jig, a frog. Water temperature's in the low 60s. I haven't been out here since, you know, it's been a few days, and all I did was test props. So, you know, we're just going to go fishing. One of the things in the past when you're fishing like this, one of the hardest things when the lake is so full is to target big ones. It's usually not hard to get bites, but figure out a way to catch bigger fish, because what happens is, you know, the lake's pretty dirty. A lot of these fish that have been out deep or whatever, they will move shallow. So a lot of the fish, I'd say 95% of the fish right now are bass, are 10 foot or less. So it's easy to get a lot of bites, but it's just hard to target the big ones. So, you know, we're gonna see if we can get some bites, kind of break it down, how we're gonna do it. And then hopefully try to figure out a way to catch some of those bigger fish. You know, what we're gonna have to do is get our bait deeper. A lot of times what you'll see is there'll be one thing, even though you got all of this flooded nonsense, there'll be one thing, a certain kind of tree, a depth, something like that, where these bigger fish will bite. One of the things that, you know, I've heard over the years from a lot of other guys has been, you know, when the water comes up real high, you gotta find a place that you can actually get to the bank where you can trap those fish. You know, there's not miles of stuff for them to get, and that's I've seen that be effective a lot, but not all the time. It really depends on the time of the year. You know, this is springtime. You know, the water's low 60s, and I would think that it would be more effective now to find a place to get to the bank. But I mean, there's lots of times that those, you know, those flats where the bushes are way out there that tend to be better. So, you know, I just like today, I put the trolling motor down in an area. We're just going to take off fishing and see which one is the best. I don't like fishing. I don't like committing to stuff like this just because I feel like, you know, this kind of stuff is easy to fish. You know, people come out fun fishing or whatever, it's just easy, even though you can catch fish doing it. You know, I like that stuff that's kind of hard to fish, maybe not as easy as somewhere else. Just feel like it don't get fished as much. It's not a bad idea today though, because I believe a lot of these fish are, if they're not spawning, they're around the spawn. They're just coming in, they're trying to spawn, or maybe they're just in that first stage of garden fry. Got everything in the water, bushes, grass. And he wants to be on a floating dock. You know, there's not a better time for a spinnerbait than the conditions right now. I mean, it just, you know, I'm trying to cover a bunch of water. I'm trying to figure out where they're at. And it just lets me cover different depths. You know, you can see trees out here 8 or 10 foot. The water's a little dirtier than I like to flip, especially in this deeper stuff. If it was this deep, it'd be different, but it's just, if it was clear, I'd be all about flipping. I mean, this thing, I can throw it up on the bank just like that, and as it comes out, slow roll it, and over the ends of these bushes and stuff. I can just do a lot of things with it. And I believe in this dirtier water, it pushes a lot of the fish up high, meaning that these, you know, these bushes and trees out here that's 10, 12 foot deep, I think the majority of the fish want to live in the upper part of it just because the water's dirty. I'm not saying you can't catch one down there deeper, but I would say the majority of these fish are going to be up high, which is right where this spinnerbait's going to be. But you know, if I'm going to go out and fish like we're doing, you know, you can see I got a frog laid out and I got a flipping stick laid out just in case, you know, I come to that one isolated willow or, you know, a leaf mat like that where I need to make just a few casts. That's something that's different. You know, I mean, we've gotten bit on the bank. We've gotten bit. There's another one. He's still trying to get it. We've gotten bit everywhere. Let me bat my trailer off. I think there's some shad spawn. Some shad spawn going on though. Fishing these bushes like this, always, you know, obviously if there's one out by itself, I'm gonna throw by it, but you can see these little alleys and stuff like right here. You can just get so much of an area, come down through all of that. Seems like the bigger ones are closer to the bank. Just nothing like a spinnerbait bite coming through the top of a bush though. Just throw slack in it. He wanted to be caught. He showed himself. It's got a 1/2 ounce double Colorado covert here. This is like the clearest. This is the spinnerbait I would use for the clearest water. Just something about today, it looks good. I've caught several on the red blade too. But there's patches like here, you can see a couple, maybe 1.5 foot. And a 610 head turner, 20-pound shooter, sunline shooter, and then a Lew's hyper mag. All you gotta do is throw it by a bush today, or throw it anywhere really. It's about time we're starting to get closer to the lake. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't gotten a hold of it. He caught me handcuffed. I'm surprised we haven't gotten a hold of a smallmouth. But nothing I could do. He hit just right as I was kind of turning my rod. Seems like today it's about bait. You know, we'll go 100 yards and not get a bite, then you'll go to getting some bites, and the only really common denominator is not depth or retrieve, it's just that there's some bait around. Oh, hair lip. Boy, he's pretty. Black spots. The one thing I've got kind of, I know we've only fished a couple hours, but I know for a fact that you cannot get a bite out of the grass. Oh, I say that, and there was the first, that's more out of the, he came out of the green bush. But I cannot get a bite out of the out of the grass, but if it's green like that, or in the back of these pockets, that tends to be the two places that have a better chance of catching a better fish. You know, if you're on a lake and it's flooded, you know, a lot of that stuff can be overwhelming, and you just have to kind of learn to kind of hit the high spots. I mean, if the water was clear, you know, where I felt like they could see my bait really good and they were from top to bottom in the water column, you know, I'd probably slow down and flip and pick things apart. But, you know, I'm just moving. But like I said earlier, there'll be little things, even though you can catch fish everywhere, there'll be high percentage places. Like today, it's the green bushes, and then it seems like the further back in the pockets. But one key is you need to always kind of look at the water level, what it's doing. You know, this is coming up, and it's coming up pretty fast. So, you know, I'm thinking that these fish are moving shallower. You know, they're gonna wanna go to the bank. Just the opposite, if you're, you know, if it's dropping real hard, then I would probably concentrate more on, you know, the outside bushes. But a lot of times you can just look at the bait. You know, today a lot of the baits has been up around the bank, you know, inside the bushes, which is a pretty good sign that the water's coming up. You know, once you start seeing the bait out in the center of the pockets and stuff, a lot of times that'll mean that the water's coming down, and those fish will kind of pull out. But, you know, it's just the same as anything else. I mean, you know, you got little points and stuff that's different. You know, if I'm fishing up there and I got one great big willow tree that's just mixed in with a lot, that's gonna be a high probability place. Just things that are different. Like I said, we're getting to a water level now where there's so much stuff in the water that sometimes they want open areas. You know, like back in there, there's some grass and stuff. Places where there's not as much stuff, where they can feed a little easier, move around and not be trapped with so much stuff around them. Every day's different though. It's just like today, it's cloudy, and I cannot get a bite unless it's around something. I mean, you would think it'd be, the way the fish are biting, it'd be sunny. Really not had any bites kind of in between stuff. Most of it's been right out of the top of a bush. He was up there in inches of water. You know, this time of year, I just try to check everything, see if they've spawned or not spawned. This looks like an old skinny male. I don't see any signs of spawning. It's hard because you can get bites anywhere, really. Not a bad one. It's another slick male. He's spawned out, I think. You know, sometimes what happens is you get so much stuff in the water that they actually want to be, and that's why I made a cast right down the center. They want to be kind of away from everything. You know, and it's kind of a test, especially with it being cloudy. I mean, they can be just down the center, so, you know, I'll go around the trees and stuff like that, the ones maybe still spawning or garden fry, but every now and then I'll just check up right down the, you know, right down the ditch just to see if there's some out there. And he was shallow, even though he was out in the center, he wasn't. Whenever he hit, I seen the wake. I don't think if a lot of them have spawned, it hasn't been very long. We're on the male train today because they're all males, but they're decent size. I just can't tell if they've spawned out, but what I was saying is I'm not seeing a lot of fry. I don't know if it's just because it's colder and they're down, or maybe they just haven't done their, a lot of them, it just hasn't, it's not far enough along. What a cool bite. Did you see he come sideways? Just how shallow he was. I mean, that right there is not a foot deep. A lot of black spots today. Well, we accomplished one thing. We caught one off first base. So, flooded, water everywhere, and fish are everywhere. Like I said, green bushes today has been the deal, and the back of the pockets has been the deal for the bigger fish. So next time you're out and it's flooded, spinnerbait, as long as the water's dirty, cover a bunch of water, and you're gonna catch some fish. So thanks for riding along. Hopefully you learned something.